Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. Happy Monday. Really? I had to think about that? Happy Monday. My bangs are finally cooperating again, so yay, I got bangs. I'm sorry I'm a little late. For all of my live viewers who I don't think are on yet, so I'll have to apologize to them momentarily. But I was looking for something and it didn't dawn on me to look for it until, of course, right before the show started. So now I'm getting all these notifications. So I said that we're going to start with happiness anchors, and then, it's going to take us one, 2, 3. It's going to take us all week, and then next week we'll talk about task paralysis. Good morning, Muddy. But first and foremost, again, I apologize. I was looking for something because it keeps getting away from me, and I keep posting things, and then I keep forgetting, and then I think about it again. September is Suicide Prevention Month. And I want to talk about that before we get to the happiness anchors, because I think it's very important as a happiness anchor to know what we're trying to anchor, right? Oh my goodness. Remember how I did the oracles the other day and I said I didn't have the guidelines? I just found them. Well, look at that, Shelley Marie. I am more prepared. Apparently I made an envelope for my book. Whoops. So anyways, just to reiterate, okay. Good morning, cousin. Good morning, sibling. So again, sorry for being late, but before we get into the day one of happiness anchors, I just want to remind everybody that it is Suicide Prevention Month. And I think that's a good segue for happiness anchors, because if we are able to find these happiness anchors, we're going to be able to really kind of just find a way to heal. And that's a big part, right? We want to keep people on this planet. But a lot of times, in my personal opinion, and from my own experience of being near, I can't remember what they call it, but it's something. Or even older sibling, when we've talked about it, and her attempts. It's just, there's a hopelessness. Okay, there's a feeling of hopelessness, and it just feels so heavy, so dark. And when it comes to mental health, I really don't think it's the coward's way out. I know a lot of people will say that, and I really, really hate that, because you see a lot of people get attention for doing it because they don't want to take accountability. But when it comes to mental health, it just feels like this is your last choice, to just get out of the darkness, to not feel it anymore. So I'm going to read you a few things, and then we're going to jump into the happiness anchors. All right. So, older sibling. I love it. All 3 girls are telling each other hello. So anyways, okay. So this is something that my friend Jody, posted from the Real Depression Project. And I love their stuff, the Real Depression Project. So, we lose over 800,000 people per year to suicide. It is the 10th biggest cause of death worldwide. 2 of the leading factors that contribute to suicide are isolation and feeling like a burden. Speaking up when suicidal isn't attention seeking. Having mental health issues doesn't make you weak. It does not. All right. I'm going to tell you right now. And I used to have a problem, because I would think, oh God, what are people going to think of me? But you know what? The fact that I am taking care of myself, even if that means I'm on an antidepressant, the fact that I'm taking care of myself shows people how strong we can be. And it's not a weakness. It's not cookie cutter. It's not anything but something to help us move through. Because some of us, I don't care what people say, for me, it's a chemical imbalance. But it's an inherited chemical imbalance. So that being said, it doesn't make you weak. I'm very open about my mental health, because I want people to see that they can thrive. But you've got to get through the healing first. You've got to find that way to step over that starting line and go, hey, you know what? I am worthy. No matter what I've done in my past, no matter what I might do in my future, I am worthy of, living a good life. And I shouldn't be marginalized because I have a mental health issue. You know, I almost got mouthy there for a second for people that want to say something about people with mental health issues, but I'm going to keep it to myself. So anyways, here are some of the things that people will say. I am alone. I am a burden. Hopelessness. Things will never get better. Oh, I know that one hard. I know that one really hard. Things will never get better. Better is... How should I put this? Better is what you choose it to be. You know, if you're thinking that your life is going to magically change and you're going to live in like a 5-story mansion and it doesn't happen, then you need to, you know, you need to bring it down a little. I mean, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but the fact that you're actually thinking that big should show you that you're getting better, because you're like, hey, you know what? This is something I want. How am I going to work for it? And when you're willing to do that, you should tell yourself, hey, look, you know what? I'm actually feeling like these are things I can do despite my mental health. So that being said, let's get into happiness anchors. This is day 1. So happiness anchors. Happiness isn't found in grand gestures or rare occasions, but in the deliberate anchors we set throughout our day. Those small, consistent moments of joy that weather life's storms and remind us that peace and pleasure are always within reach. When we honor these touch points of delight, we aren't just pausing for pleasure, we're building a resilient foundation of our well-being, excuse me, one tiny moment at a time. So we're just coming out of all this weird weather, so my sinuses are draining. Seriously. So that's from Karma Gaia. Karma Gaia is a place that I used to get a lot of my good ideas from, and I always give whoever I use their stuff from, I always give them credit, but for some reason I'm not getting the emails anymore. So all right, I have magic coffee too. I apologize. Look, yay. So anyway, all right. In our often chaotic and demanding lives, consistent moments of joy can serve as powerful stabilizing forces, what psychologists call happiness anchors. These intentional touch points throughout your day don't just provide momentary pleasure, they fundamentally reshape your overall sense of being. All right. So, tomorrow we're going to talk about finding your anchors. The science behind it will be on Wednesday, and making anchors stick will be Thursday. So, or we might switch that since, you know, Wednesday is Self-Care Wednesday. But let's go through this. Now, when it says happiness isn't found in grand gestures or rare occasions, I disagree just a little bit, because happiness can be found there. But I think what they're trying to say is that the overall feeling of keeping that happiness, you know, you have to work at it. You have to set the tone for the day. You know, you have to just kind of take whatever's going to come, and no matter what you're hit with, know that, okay, I don't know how I'm going to move through this, but it's going to be okay. And that can be hard. But I mean, there are grand gestures that are so beautiful that you can't help but be happy about them, you know, or the rare occasions, right? I mean, one of my favorite birthdays was when I turned 30, and I'm going to tell you why. Sibling and I had planned a big, you know, dinner with my friends, our friends, and, you know, but when I came around the corner, my parents were there. I had no idea they were going to be there. And I was just over the moon, you know. I mean, I was hinting all day, trying to figure out if they were coming. She was so good. I mean, this girl is like Fort Knox when it comes to secrets. But, you know, she's like, no. I even called my dad's work, and I don't know how this guy got it right, but he's like, oh no, he's left for the day, you know. And I don't know, it was like the universe just came together and said, you know what, we're just going to surprise you, and it's a big grand gesture, but, you know, it's a happiness anchor. And 22 years later, it's still something that I think about and that I absolutely love. I mean, it was not close. I mean, we were in LA celebrating my birthday. Okay. And that's not a short drive from San Diego. Plus my parents had to get a hotel room and all that. So, I mean, it was just a very nice big gesture. And I think that we can find happiness from that. If somebody bringing you coffee at work, it's a kind gesture. It's a big gesture. You know, for some people, it's a grand gesture. You know, rare occasions. Maybe you're getting married. Maybe you're celebrating an anniversary. Maybe someone you know or your child is getting married, or, you know, those kind of things I really do believe can bring happiness. But I think what they're trying to talk about here is when that moment's over, are we still happy? Or have we just kind of gone back to that kind of feeling? And I think that's where they're talking about with the happiness anchors. Is this something that is going to still make you feel good later down the road? No, that was not the year my dad dressed as Goofy. I think that was my 40th birthday. And they surprised me then too. Oh my God, I totally forgot about that, sibling. I totally forgot about that. So actually, I don't think that was my 40th birthday. I think that was somewhere in my 40s, or my late 30s. Anyways, I got to tell you guys this story because it was great. So if you know me, you know I love Goofy. I have loved Goofy since I was 18 years old. All right. And there's a short story behind that. I got tired of everybody, you know, loving the same characters I did. Hello, Mickey Mouse. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pick a new character. And I did. And I picked Goofy. And I fell in love with Goofy. You know, tall, cute. Hello. He's just adorable. So I remember, so if you've ever been to LA and you've ever been to Hollywood, you'll know that on Hollywood Boulevard, there's always these people dressing up, you know, people that are they're just trying to make money, you know, and that's fine. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean, like, but you know, they take pictures with them, you can tip them and all that other stuff. And they kind of try to act like, you know, your favorite superheroes or your favorite characters. So we show up to my favorite restaurant in LA. And I told older sibling, I said, I think somebody wandered, you know, from Hollywood Boulevard. And she's all, what do you mean? And I said, well, I think someone wandered from Hollywood Boulevard. And so, and she's like, well, you know, who cares? And I thought, but it was so great. I'm so dense. I'm all like, oh my God, but it's Goofy. It's Goofy. And so I go, you know, we park, we're walking to the restaurant, and I'm, you know, a bunch of my friends are there waiting. And all of a sudden, I'm just like, oh my God, can I get a picture? You know, and I'm just like, can I get a picture? And this, that, and the other. And we're taking a picture. And then I was like, you know, I'm like, so I'm digging into my purse to give this person a tip, right? Because I mean, come on. I thought that they were wise enough to go, you know, north of the boulevard. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to give them a tip. And it's like this, that, and the other. And it's like, and they're like, no tip. And I'm just like, but they're all, no. And then Laura's all, oh, it's her birthday. And I mean, they're just like, oh, you know, and they didn't say anything, you know, but they're just like, you know, so it was like, so we took one more picture. And then, you know, we went inside. I said, well, we have to go in now because we have people waiting. And so then I walk in and I see my mom and I'm like, oh my God, you're here. And she's all, yeah, you know, and so I'm like, oh my God, you're here. I'm like, where's Dad? And all of a sudden it dawned on me. It's like, oh my God, that was my father. My father had bought a Goofy costume and dressed up as Goofy for I don't know if it was for my birthday or for what, but I was just like, oh, it was so sweet. And then he walks in and I just kind of hugged him and I'm all like, I said, that would have been even funnier if you took the tip. But anyway, so yeah, that was a great memory. That's one of my, thank you, sibling. I forgot about that. I don't know how, but I did. But yeah, that was just the whole exchange. Just like, oh really? Why is this guy up here? So anyways, but yeah, but it was funny. And my mom and Laura said to me, the look on your face when you realized it was your dad that was out there. And we're just like, oh, it was Dad. So sometimes I'm telling you, you know, I mean, I'm not dumb by any stretch of the imagination, but you know what? Sometimes I just get so carried away in everything else that one end A does not click with B. So, anyways, I'm sorry. All right, so let's start from the beginning. All right, so we talked about this. Happiness isn't found in grand gestures or rare occasions, but in the deliberate anchors we set throughout our day. So we talked about the big grand gestures twice now and the rare occasions, but deliberate anchors. And I think that's what they're talking about, because I do believe happiness can be, like I just said, I do believe happiness can be found in the grand gestures or the rare occasions. But in order for the feeling to stick, in order for it, like if you're going to throw something at the wall, like, that term, let's throw things at the wall and see what sticks. I think that's what they're talking about with the deliberate anchors. And the deliberate anchors are what we're working for. It's setting these little things throughout the day. Say, that, I know at work there were certain days that you knew were just going to be a little harder than others, because of, everything that it entailed, everything you had to do. And Wednesday was that day, when I was at work, because we had a spreadsheet we had to fill out. Everybody had to make sure they had all their stuff in, then it had to go to all the other offices for the big, conference call. And this was them just going over their status of all the projects. And so that was one of my things. So on Wednesdays, a lot of times I would stop for coffee. And it wasn't because I needed coffee, because I drink decaf. It was because it's like, you know what? I need a little bit more lovin' today. And so I would set that as my happiness anchor. Now, I didn't do that every week, but I think the whole point was that we have deliberate anchors that we set throughout the day because we know what kind of day it's going to be. But there's also anchors that we can set at the beginning of the day. For instance, the minute you open your eyes, thank you for another wonderful day. There's one thing I used to say, I'm so happy and grateful for this day. Oh gosh, I can't remember it, but if I remember it, I'll put it in the comments. I know I should remember it, right? Because this is something I'm supposed to say every morning. Thank you for this day. I'm so happy and grateful for this day. Something, miracle will follow miracles and wonders shall never cease. And I have it written at home so that I remember it, because it's the first thing I'd see when I sit down at my desk. But whoops. But and the funny thing is, I do try to say thank you every morning I wake up, because remember, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Not everybody gets that chance. In fact, there have been days when I've gotten maybe an hour or two of sleep just because I was afraid to go to sleep. I know. So anyways, when you create these small, consistent moments of joy that weather life storms, so those small, consistent moments of joy that weather life storms and remind us that peace and pleasure are always within reach. So what is your happiness anchor? Maybe it's your dogs, maybe it's your cats, maybe it's the animals that you feed outside. I'm telling you, Sammy is Snow White, okay, without the annoying voice. I'm sorry, I do not like Snow White. I mean, it's not Snow White herself. It was the voice of the cartoon in Snow White. It's like, good Lord. And that's just me. But she is. I mean, she loves the animals. I mean, the other day we were talking and I said, oh yeah, something about the animals. She's like, oh, which reminds me, I got to go put out, the food for the night babies. And it's like, oh, the night babies. I loved it. It was just like, oh. So anyways, and I love that, because it's like, other people would be like trying to poison them to keep them out of the yard. I mean, they eat her flowers. And instead of being mad and trying to poison them, she's like, well, I'll plant more because they got to eat, right? So, Sammy, the Mother Teresa of the animals. So anyways, same with sibling. And then, I mean, like with my cousin Jeannie, right? She has the two cutest dogs, but Maisie, oh my God. Maisie's a kisser. I love that dog. And my other friend's dog, Opal, oh my God. And Zoe, oh my God. So anyways, I know, I'm sorry, but these are happiness anchors, right? These are our happiness anchors. Think of it this way. We think, oh, well, how is a pet my happiness anchor? Well, you wake up in the morning, you have to feed them, they're going to love you for it. And then you give them treats or this, that, and the other, and they show their affection with you. That can be a happiness anchor. And it's a happiness anchor because when they pass on and they cross the rainbow bridge, we're devastated. It's like the world ended, like you lost a child. And I know a lot of people be like, that's not the same thing. Well, for those of us who don't have kids, or for those of us whose children have grown up, it can feel that way. Because they're our babies. They're our fur babies. So when we set these small, consistent moments of joy, we are setting these things to help us weather bad things. We never know what we're going to be faced with from day to day. And so when we kind of set ourselves up for victory, for setting ourselves up for like a happiness victory, or setting ourselves up for a good day, whatever comes at us, we're going to be able to weather those storms. Just like it says here, there's those small, consistent moments of joy that weather life's storms and remind us that peace and pleasure are always within reach. When we get upended, and especially with mental health, because sometimes when you're having a bad mental health day and you're spiraling and going crazy, not crazy like that, probably a bad choice of words, it can sometimes be hard to find that footing. I mean, you feel like you're holding on and your feet are just slipping underneath you and you're just so terrified you're going to fall deeper, until you take a deep breath and you say, you know what, instead of wiggling my feet down there, just stop, breathe, and maybe lift your foot a little bit higher to find a drier spot where it's not slipping off, to help push you up. Because when we take that moment and maybe we have that happiness anchor, maybe the happiness anchor when you're hanging in that well going, oh my God, I'm going to fall even further, is saying, look, there's sunlight out there. There's a world outside of this hole. And I have to figure out how to get there. And when we have that happiness anchor that says, you know what, I deserve peace and I deserve pleasure, that can be a happiness anchor. I deserve peace. That can be a mantra when you wake up in the morning. I deserve peace. I deserve pleasure. I deserve good things in life. And you don't have to be a saint to feel like you can get those things. You just have to be a good person in this moment right now. And to remind ourselves that we deserve all these wonderful things can really help, kind of keep you stationary in the idea of having that happiness anchor. Sometimes it's scary. I get it. Because we figure, well, if I'm super duper happy, and what if the bottom falls out from underneath me? Well, then maybe you don't fall as far. But if you keep yourself in this realm of thinking, well, I'm just going to be realistic, you can be realistic and still have happiness anchors. To be honest with you, happiness anchors are reality. Sitting there and saying, well, if I don't expect anything, then I won't be disappointed. That's not reality. That's you trying to protect yourself. I mean, it may feel like reality, but you can still have a happiness anchor and say, hey, yeah, you know what? The bottom may have just fell out from underneath me, but look, I'm still hanging on and I'm still figuring it out. And tomorrow is a new day. If you have a shitty day today, tomorrow is a new day. Do what you can to turn it around. If we set our happiness anchors, then we can sit there and we can say, hey, you know what? I said, today, maybe I have this, and the other, but I'm going to spend some time just, watching whatever, my favorite Netflix show. And that'll be my treat for the day. Or I'm going to, hang out with my dog and give them treats and whatever, or my cats and give them treats or whatever. And that could be also your happiness anchor. Or it could be a lot of different things. Happiness anchors, it's not for me to tell you what it is. It's for you. Maybe journaling. Maybe as my cousin does, her daily devotionals. It's what brings you joy. It's what keeps you anchored in the moment when, the big proverbial tornado comes by and tries to whisk you off like Dorothy. Okay? And as incredibly cool as Oz might seem, you do not want to go there. Because the man behind the curtain. So anyways, when we honor these touch points of delight, we aren't just pausing for pleasure. We're building a resilient foundation of our well-being, one tiny moment at a time. So your happiness anchor could be meditation in the morning. We talked about ha breathing, I think the week before last. For a lot of people, it could be therapy. Therapy was a really big happiness anchor for me for a while because I knew I had someone that I could talk to that was going to walk me through some of the stuff that I struggled with and teach me how to ground myself in those moments so I don't spiral so much. I can tell you right now, I still spiral, but I don't spiral as bad, knock on wood, because I don't want to, and I don't spiral as much as I used to. And when I say it's not as bad, it's because it might take me a day or two to realize it's happening, but I can usually catch it now because I've learned my signs. I've learned about myself. And even that can be a happiness anchor, getting to know ourselves. I mean, how many of us can really look in the mirror and say, I know that person in the mirror? Not who the world expects you to be, but who you are. Who you are not afraid to present to this world. Not the people pleaser you, just you. Not the person who will stay quiet because they don't want to share an opinion. Sometimes it's better to do that, but and just let other people vent or talk. I mean, it always depends on if it's an actual conversation or it's, someone just trying to get under your skin. So, sorry, hold on one moment. I love the fact that I have bangs, but they're still a little crazy at the moment. There we go. I know. Anyways, welcome to my forehead. You can have a whole party on there. So anyways, so let's get to the bottom part. In our often chaotic and demanding lives, consistent moments of joy can serve as powerful stabilizing forces. What psychologists call happiness anchors. These intentional touch points throughout your day don't just provide momentary pleasure, they fundamentally reshape your overall sense of well-being. So, it talks about here like morning rituals, midday rituals, evening rituals, and we're going to get into that tomorrow, okay? And then we're also going to talk about, morning rituals, coffee, reading, stepping into the AM air. Now, I don't know about coffee, but I can tell you right now, Sammy does 2 of those 3 things. I know, right? So Muddy Twin has got that down. And, you have your midday resets, your evening rituals. And like I said, we're going to go over that tomorrow. But think about what it might be that brings you joy. Maybe, like I said, my cousin does her devotionals. I don't know if she does, what time of day she does them, if she does them several times a day. But if if you are a person of faith, maybe you can do that every day. They sell books that have, day 1 through 365. They have books that are quotes 1 through 365. They have for metaphysical people or more of the, law of attraction type people, they also have these books for every single day of the year. You can get yourself those calendars that are 1 through 365 or 66, depending on the year. Sorry, don't want to make that extra day feel bad every 4 years. But, there's those things. And you can let that help you set the tone of your day. And again, coffee rituals, there's all sorts of things that you can do as a happiness anchor. Even if it's just loving on your pet in the morning before you go to work or before you start your day, just giving them a squeeze, whether they like it or not. Pixel will try to get away and she'll just pretend, because the minute I put her down, she's just standing there looking at me like, oh, already? Sassy girl. But, okay, so Jeannie says, my cousin says, I try to do my devotionals and prayer in the morning. And that's perfect. And then if you want, you can probably do, so you don't move past those devotionals. If you're having a bad day or you're going to, you're kind of hitting this stride of like, and you want to rip your hair out, just go back to the devotional that you read that morning. That can be your happiness anchor. And it could be so many things. And that's one thing, because, not everybody goes through the devotionals every day, right? And Sammy too. Sammy does the same thing. And like I said, not everybody will do that consistently. They may do it for a while and then it trails off. So find other things. Find other things. Even if it's just opening the Bible to a random quote, or opening whatever it is that you turn your faith to or your higher power, just to a random quote. If you're a person that loves The Secret, open the book to a random page in the book. And it actually says it. I actually have a book at home. And it's about this thick, and I wish I had it here. But it's, you can read it, go one through the end, and like one for page one to the very end, or you can just open it randomly and say, hey, you know what, this is my thought for the day. Oh, thank you, cousin. She says, I've added the Aloha Perspective in the morning happiness as well. Thank you. I have to tell you, this is probably, even on the difficult conversation days, this is one of my happiness anchors. And I think part of it is because the girls do come on, and in those moments where sometimes we might feel isolated. I mean, I don't hear, but I do have a bad habit of isolating. And I know sometimes it worries sibling. Like, I'll be in my room all day and I'll be quiet. And a lot of times I'll text her, like, even if I'm upstairs, like, hey, blah, 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 I just, you hit my head, even though you're right below me on the first floor. But sometimes when I'm really super duper quiet, she'll come check on me because she's worried, because she knows. And I've gotten a lot better at that. I try not to isolate. I do admit I've isolated a lot, like when I go to Starbucks or stuff, but I've started using that time as productive time. So I've used it to my advantage. And that's a happiness anchor too. I love to color. I love to color. They have adult coloring books, not those kind of adult coloring books, although I'm sure they exist. But or you know what? Sometimes I love going to the dollar store and buying the kids coloring books. Because it doesn't matter if it's crayons, and yes, I have crayons and pencils and markers. I'm a big kid, but I don't care, because a lot of times when I can feel myself spiraling out of control, I will just color if I can, because when I start to feel like I'm not in a good place, I do have a hard time journaling. And so to kind of bring me back and to kind of recenter, I will color. And it has helped me a lot. People will do other things. They'll do scrapbooking, they'll do Legos, they'll build model cars or boats or whatever. Oh, yeah, older sibling says she does the coloring books online. Yeah, those are hard, though. I mean, I spend a lot of my time doing this. Because it's like, some of them are so tiny, I can't see it. It's like, what do you mean I'm not done yet? And then, like, you make it wider and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry that I don't have eyes of a 5-year-old. Seriously. Those are hard. So to all of you who do those online, kudos to you. But anyways, I'm sorry. At this point, I'm just rambling. But this is the basis of our happiness anchors, okay? And I want people to really kind of think about what you can do for yourself to keep yourself in a good place. And like I said, this is where reality comes in. Not every day is going to be a great day. We are going to have bad days, but the level of bad that we let our day get to is up to us. Do we choose to find that happiness anchor, so when it feels like we're drifting off to sea, we can grab onto it and say, okay, look, maybe this isn't great right now, but I'm going to hold on to this happy thought, or this, whatever it is that I'm going to do in the morning, the midday, or the evening, because I need that for right now, because I don't want to drift off. Back in the earlier days of the show, I used to talk about the sea of misery and the ocean of bliss. And the only way to get to the ocean of bliss was through the wall of waves, right? And the wall of waves, to me, was where the healing is, and the reason I called it the wall of waves is because sometimes it does feel like you're drowning. Not literally, obviously, but sometimes it does feel like you're drowning. Sometimes it feels like, holy crap, how am I going to get through this? And yet, the more you try to get through it, the more you find yourself getting through it. And the sea of misery and the island of isolation, those are all real things. But when we find that happiness anchor, it gives us a little more stability to push through. If you're trying to heal something, or you're trying to heal a lot of somethings, or even one big something, you are the only person that can do it. We can have support. We can have people that, care about us. We can have people, we can have therapists, but you have to do the work. That's why my therapist graduated me. the August before last. So about a year ago now, she graduated me because she's like, you're there, but you're afraid to take that step. And, I was talking to baby sibling this morning and I said, yeah, I'm all like, I came through all this stuff, but it's like, I'm so afraid still of moving forward. And I don't know why. I don't understand why. And if any of you who are watching this, whether you know me or not, can give me any suggestions as to how to move through this, I will be absolutely appreciative, because any suggestions are welcome, because one of them is bound to stick. But maybe the happiness anchors will help me, because change is scary for me. And, and it's fear. And I keep letting fear get in my way because change is scary for me. So you have to decide what your happiness anchors are. In fact, here's your homework. All right. Come up with at least one thing. And I'm talking to you three on here. All right, too, because last time I said, come up with some stories and nobody had stories. So come up there is nothing too small, nothing too stupid to be a happiness anchor. Like I said, it could be your cat, your dog, your horse, whatever. It can be your cup of coffee in the morning. It can be sitting outside, seeing the sneaky deer going, is she watching? Can I eat her sunflowers? It can be anything like that. Whatever brings you joy, whatever you think will be good enough to start your happiness anchor garden. So come up with at least one thing. I will too. I will do my best to come up with something. So anyways, I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching, whether it's now or later. I will be back here tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, Facebook Live. All lives are public under Shelley Marie Lucas on Facebook. And I'm also across the board on social media, either under the Aloha Perspective or Shelley Marie Lucas, like on Threads, Blue Sky. I think it's Shelley Marie Lucas on YouTube and TikTok. I think it's the Aloha Perspective. On Instagram, it's Shelley Marie Lucas right now, because right now the Aloha Perspective is just, floating in the wind doing nothing. But I will get back to that, I promise. So yeah, and on Twitter, Shellbell's Quest. So again, have a great day, everybody. Sammy, Jeannie, older sibling, thank you all three, Muddy, cousin, and older sibling, for popping on. I appreciate you guys so much. I truly, truly do. And I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day. And yeah, I will see everybody tomorrow. Thank you again for watching.